Got a new overhead camera set up so that I'm hoping that this will give us all a good view. Most of all, you. I'm going to continue on. Of course, it's going to be best if I test out my temperature of my wood burner. So, give it a couple seconds to catch up, turning it on. Seems pretty good temperature. See how it works on the head. Sometimes it'll vary if your sample wood that you're using is not from the same piece of wood your bird is carved from. There could be a difference in hardness and softness in that piece, so you'll want to be sure and try to use a sample piece of wood that's from the same block of wood you cut your bird out of. So I'm following the feather clumps. Okay. So I have to think about things we can talk about. And as I'm doing all of this burning, so I can only say so much about the technique I'm using. So when I first started carving, I used a replaceable tip wood burner. It was called a pyro tool or something like that. And I came later in the carving to learn that when you don't have a fixed tip, the contact that the tip is making with the two brass channels sticking out of the, right here you can see the brass channels. It's soldered on. Well, if it's not soldered on there, which is basically what is going on when you're using a replaceable tip, you just pull the tip out and stick a new one in. The contact isn't as consistent, and the heat is also affected, and it could be you know, when you push on one side of the blade, the contact within these brass channels that the tip is sitting in isn't getting as great of contact as if you were pushing it from the other side. So that'll vary a lot. So I always use a fixed tip with my wood burning tips. I'm going to turn this down just a little. Pausing also lets your tip heat up, so I'm going to keep in mind that. So With a little bit of a twist, you can make a more realistic feather clump where from the base of the feather, those feathers are meeting the back edge as the end of the feather. It's burning quite hot here. Not sure. And again, this is the first pass. This is just defining feather flow, confirming what I did with my texturing stone, and refining it. Then I'll come back and refine each of these feather barbs as needed. Like, you know, there's stuff here that needs to be taken care of. It's too broken up and feather clumps shortened. We can never hope to carve as many feathers as there are in a duck. Well, at least without going mad. I mean, what we're doing is doing a representation of a feather that's hopefully convincing, whether it's, you know, the entire bird or it's just this little tiny area on the face of a redhead drake. Just breaking up all of these surface textures added with my texturing stone. As I go back, you can see that the feather clumps are more defined as feather clumps. Just, you know, heavier texture. I see a lot of novice, sometimes intermediate carvers who are just drawing long lines with the feather flow. And then they go back and they maybe break it up a little bit. And basically they're not doing enough passes to break up those lines that they initially put on the bird as feather flow guidelines. That's just the very beginning. These feathers have been planned since before I started texturing them with the stone. I carved them specifically this way for a reason. You can see the clumps that are starting to emerge right in this back edge. I'm going to go back to the other side and catch it up. Again, working even from side to side. You'll see at the end of the feather clump I'm doing a little twist to actually end the barb that I'm burning in. I find wood burning to be quite relaxing. It can be very hypnotic. It's always nice to have some good music on in the background. I like to have music with no words when I'm carving. I like to think more about the carving than I do about the words in a song. Kind of takes up some of my brain power, I feel. So if I listen to music with no words, my brain can be a little bit more devoted to the carving than to the music I'm listening to. It also, I feel like it has an effect, if I'm listening to some hard driving music, my carvings can kind of look edgy, and that could work for you if that's the look you're looking for in your bird. But you won't find me listening to Metallica or any hard rock or anything like that when I'm carving. It just doesn't suit my style of carving. If you're having trouble getting a delicate look on something, you might take a look at your surrounding area that you work in. Is it chaotic? Is it noisy? Is there no privacy? Is it cold? Is it hot? All of these things can affect the way you carve. And as well as the music you're listening to or not listening to. Maybe you should be listening to music and you're not. I go on Amazon Prime. We have Amazon, so make these playlists of instrumental music, and I got like 41 hours of uninterrupted music in the background. Works out pretty well. I think this is a pretty good setup for at least, I can even see as I'm doing this, I can see the frame, if everything's framed up in my camera lens. That is fantastic. So many times I have to guess if I've wandered my hand out of view or pulled it to my chest when it's focused on my lap. Very frustrating because sometimes I only have one shot at actually getting the video of the